Behind the Shades.
I started to deal with anxiety, which I had not experienced for quite a while. And I was like, okay, this is odd. And then right before the end of the year, so I guess it was on a Thursday and New Year's Eve was on a Saturday or something. Like I got a news, like, and it was actually a happy news, but it was not a news of mine. It was someone who shared with me their very happy news. And I guess it kind of felt like, women who are going through infertility, and they have all their friends getting pregnant. And I guess that's how it felt to me, that, kind of like, this person that I really love and very close to is getting what I've always wanted. And I'm taking the pregnant woman example because that's, people can relate to that. And I was like, okay, he's getting what I've always wanted, what I've always dreamed of. I worked so hard for it. I'm not there yet. And it was happiness, really happiness. And I was happy for him. But God, I felt like, like I was stabbed in the back, not anything related to that person at all, but more about, I guess, this feeling of like, I would like to be there, but I'm not there yet. And it's what I've always wanted. And gosh, I have done so much already. I don't know what to do. This kind of like despair, I guess, which happened actually after the buildup, like about 10 days buildup of anxiety. And I knew there were stuff that was trying to come out from my childhood. I knew that. And I was processing that, with somatic practices and really being in the body and letting myself feel and everything. But that news, it was like, like I had this complete, I guess, breakdown, I would call it. Like I cried for like after, so the person announced to me the news, and then they left, and I cried for like 10 hours straight. And I'm not a crier, right? I just want to say I'm not like a person who cries easily at all. Like I didn't even cry for about 20 years or something. But like since my burnout in 2021, I have been able to process my emotion in a more organic way, or actually just have been able to process my emotions, period, which was not the case before, because before I was just blocking my emotions. And so I cried for like 10 hours. And then the day after, I cried again. And then I felt like a huge block had been completely released. And I felt like, wow, it's gone. So at peace. I wasn't triggered anymore by the news. I wasn't experiencing anxiety anymore. I was like, okay, whatever was there, whatever was triggering me, whatever needed to be healed is now gone. But that was a process. Really was a process. Yeah, it was really dense and intense.
I could imagine you're getting this news and it's this conflict, right? You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be full of joy. And then you're like,
and I felt
I
guilty
wanted
about that.
Yeah. Like you have that guilt and you're like, oh my goodness, it's not about me, but yet it's still about me, right?
It's awful because I felt so guilty because, I was like, this person, shared the news with me, and I was like, oh, congratulations. But it wasn't like, like, I'm so happy for you, whatever. I was like, it was so cold. And, then I just texted and I was like, look, I'm sorry, I'm really happy for you. But like, and then they were like, I knew that when I would announce the news to you, I knew that it would hurt you. But I had to share it with you because, this is happening. And I wanted you to know, which was fair. And I mean, it's totally normal, but I felt so much guilt about not, like my joy for them being overridden by my own pain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's some times where I'll get news or I'll deliver news and you can look at the person's face and you're like, oh, they kind of wanted the same thing for themselves. And you don't want to make it awkward, right? You don't want to ask the question, are you truly happy for me? And the person's like,
No,
well, I'm kind of not. But
yeah, but it's not
you,
about you. It's
yeah, it isn't. But I think what we sometimes forget is that every situation that we go through, it's going to create an emotional response through us, right? So when you experience that and you heard it, what was your initial thoughts after you realize, hey, I shouldn't be really feeling guilty of this news. I should be more happy of the news.
Well, I knew that I was happy about the news, but it was like more my pain. And you know how negative feelings tend to be more intense than happy ones. So it was like my pain was, taking the whole place. I was happy, but I was hurting. I was hurting more than I was happy. And that made me feel guilty. But at the end of the day, like no one should feel upset. Like now, if I were to announce a happy news to someone and I knew that, it would kind of like trigger them, I would know that their response has nothing to do with me. And they're probably happy, but, as human beings, we go through so many emotions, and most of the time, when we have an emotion, it's really about us. It's not about the other person.
I agree 100%. It's more so about how we're taking that information versus how it's being delivered a lot of the times.
Exactly.
So, but I will say it took courage for you to actually respond back to that person and say, hey, I didn't mean to sound so cold, because that's part of the first step, right? To actually understand that, wait a minute, my response is not the type of response that I would want if I wanted to deliver this
and
news.
It felt so awkward because, it really felt awkward. Like, they announced me this news and I was like, congratulations. And, just really basic. And I could sense that they were, kind of like being awkward about it because they kind of knew that it would hurt me in a way. And then I heard the news and I was feeling awkward because my reaction wasn't the one that should be expected. But at the same time, I couldn't react in any other way. So it was pretty awkward. It was really awkward. And then, I just wanted to make it clear that, yes, like I'm going through this. It triggered me, and explain to them. And then I had to unpack my emotions. Like, yes, I got triggered by this. Of course, this is what I've always wanted. But why am I so triggered? And I really had to unpack my emotions and, one after the other, because sometimes we'll think, okay, we are triggered by this other person or what they're doing or what they're saying. But most of the time, like I said, it's really about us. And we have to unpack the emotions because sometimes it's really like very layered, and there are so many different kind of layers. And so I really had to unpack. And now I couldn't even say what the root cause was because I feel like it's completely gone. Like with all the crying and all the processing, like I think it's just gone.
If you were to look back and actually try to maybe guess or maybe do some critical analyzing, what did you think it was?
Obviously, it was related to my own childhood and the fact that as a child, I never really got what I wanted. My parents never really gave me what I wanted, whether it was, so just for like a background story, my parents were very abusive. So I was neglected as a child, but I was also abused. And when it came to material stuff, I remember when I was a young child, there were things that I wanted or activities that I wanted to do, but because to them, it didn't matter. It wasn't important. They never, bought the thing or paid for this activity, for example. So I felt a lot of, obviously not being supported, but also wanting for things to happen and wanting certain things and never getting them. So there was that. And there are probably other things as well, but this is what comes up now.
That's a good point. I know a number of people that feel there are certain childhood experiences that they would want. And when they look around, maybe that they felt like they didn't get it. And I think sometimes we forget that our parents try to do our best, but sometimes their best, or sometimes the best of that person, isn't necessarily what we need and may not be sufficient. And I know that you and I spoke earlier, and we spoke on your podcast where sometimes the parents, they just have no idea what that child actually needs, and it stays with us for so much later on in life, especially
I do
right?
agree. Sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
No,
I just want to say,
no, go ahead.
I do agree when it comes to, for example, what could be perceived as a child, what could be perceived as neglect, for example, like for whatever reason you didn't get what you wanted, but maybe it was for your own safety, and a child cannot understand that. Obviously, for me, like from my experience, there was neglect, but there was a lot of abuse, emotional, physical, there was even sexual abuse. So it was kind of like a different environment.
Yeah, and then when you go through that, right, because we spoke about it, is that your parents no longer your protector, right? They're the ones who never. Actually, yeah, they're not that. So where do you go to get something like that?
Honestly, it's really funny that you mention this. Like for someone like me and other people who have gone through this experience of not having your primary caregivers as your protectors, you kind of live life like you always have to have your own back, like you cannot rely on anyone and no one's going to help you. Yeah.
I would say maybe, and this is going to sound a little stereotypical, I say it's probably a lot scarier for women than it is for men, since men are viewed more so in general as a protector. But when a woman has to be her own protector, she can be kind of anxious and suspicious of the people that will enter her life.
Yeah, and that's something that I've been able to work on, and it's way better now than it used to be. But as a woman, it really put me more in my masculine energy at the time, which is something that I've been working on for the past, ever since my burnout. So since summer 2021, but I was very much in my masculine. And that meant that I also attracted men who had a very wounded masculine, who were more like what I guess people would say emasculated in a way, like I was wearing the pants, which is actually freaking tiring for a woman to wear the pants, which is not something that I want anymore. But so I was attracting those men who I had to kind of like be a mom to. Not that they wanted that, but because they didn't have a strong masculine, they didn't make me feel safe. And they didn't make me feel safe because they didn't have like this strong masculine presence or confidence, or, that makes you feel safe. So yeah, I was very much in my masculine energy, and it's been just a couple of years now that I've been, and I never looked like a man. I never wanted to be like a man, or I always looked very feminine, but I had a very strong masculine energy. Like I was very dominant. I wanted things to be a certain way. I was a hustler, all the things. Yeah.
And that's the thing, when, especially for women, when they tap into their masculine energy for so long, and that well is so deep because they've been drawing from it for such a long period of time, it's hard for them to get out of it. And when they're trying to get out of it, there's that struggle because they're probably thinking, I've been this way for so long. If I change and try to be more feminine and more reliant on someone else, it opens me up to be hurt. It opens me up to heartbreak and heartache. then they go back to what is comfortable. And what's comfortable is that masculine energy, which is always their protector because there is no one around to supplement their feminine energy with the masculine energy. I wonder if it was ever possible for anyone to experience a significant change without significant trauma. And I say that because it's like, for me, one of the reasons why I became the man that I am today is because of what I went through and what I shared with you, how I grew up without my mother and my father, how I wanted to be better and no girl wanted me. And then I had to figure out what girls want and I had to become this person, right? This bearded, strong man in a way. But then you hear so many people on their path to success, they've had to experience some type of failure. They've experienced burnout, they've experienced heartbreak, maybe they're abused as a child. Out of all the people you help with or you've come across, is that a similar story for them where it's like, this has caused me so much pain that I had to become the person I am today?
I think for my clients, for example, they don't even know why. They just, wake up one day and they feel like, okay, like I've been like this for a while now, and now I just cannot take it anymore, but I don't really know what's wrong with my life. I don't really know what's wrong with me, but I'm not feeling happy. I'm not satisfied, even though, I may be, having a job that enables me to have, like a great life experience, but I feel sad and empty within. And I think that for most people, in order to really make change happen, we have to reach our lowest point.
And how low was that point for you?
Well, I always wondered what it would take for me to, break down. And it was my burnout, but there was a buildup before that. I had been dealing with crippling anxiety for years. I had panic attacks. I had a lot of physical symptoms, especially before my burnout. I had chronic pain. I had chronic fatigue. So my body was actually, my body had been sending me signals for a very long time, for years even. But it was only when my mind couldn't take it anymore, which is really funny because the body keeps going if the mind keeps going. But when my mind couldn't take it anymore, and it was when I was dealing with all this crap, and then there was also this very toxic work environment, and at some point my mind just couldn't take it anymore. And for me, that was my breakdown. It was like, okay, I just can't anymore. That was my lowest point.
And then from that point, when you realized that I can't do this anymore, I can't be this way anymore, I need to change my surroundings, my environment, I need to become a new Monika. How did that process go?
So I had been going through a detox, like when it comes to environment, to come to people for a while. And honestly, when I had my burnout, I really didn't have any friends. I just had one friend. And I lived abroad, like not in my home country. So I live in Switzerland. I'm French and I live in Switzerland. And I mean, it's not the best country if you really want to make friends. It's actually really hard for foreigners to make friends here. So I just had this one friend, and but I had a very toxic work environment. Luckily for me, I was on paid sick leave. I don't know if you have that in Canada. I know it's not really the case in the US, but I was on paid sick leave. So meaning that I was paid in full for like 5 months or something. And so yeah, I mean, for me, my lowest point was really when my mind couldn't take it anymore, when my mind just broke. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have paid leave in Canada, where many companies do. And I think it's very vital because someone could be going through something similar to you, and they just need time to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But if it's unpaid and you have to make a decision, mental health or
It's
homelessness,
what
do you choose?
Honestly, I felt very lucky because usually like paid sick leave here is 80% of your salary, but my company had a special insurance, which which made me earn my full salary for like 5 months, which I'm really, really grateful for that, because there was no way for me to go back to work at that point. And then I didn't have to, because I got fired during my burnout. So yeah, but like I would always say, that my burnout was this, kind of like a breaking point of my rebirth. There were steps before that, but the burnout was really I went through this whole transformation.
And what did that transformation look like for you? And are you still going through it to this day?
I think we're all a work in progress. So the transformation is still, going on. But now I'm actually able to, I guess, just be myself in a more authentic way. I'm also able to process my emotions and not be triggered like I used to be triggered. And I mean, you can always be triggered, but it's really how you react, And now I know, oh, I'm triggered. Okay, I'm just going to find out, what it is about. Why am I triggered about this? It's not about reacting. It's really about understanding why you feel that way. And it was also, about me finding my purpose and what it was that I really wanted to do in life. Because, I had gone from jobs to jobs and I wasn't feeling fulfilled in what I was doing. It was paying the bills, but like I knew that it was more to life than just go to work and do something that I, just, awfully, pays for the bills, but it's not fulfilling. And I'm a passionate person. So passion is very important for me when it comes to the things that I do, or even like the person that I love. Like passion for me is like my thing. Like it makes me feel alive. So I need that. I cannot do like a dull life. And that's just me. That's just who I am. And going through that burnout helped me to reconnect with my true self. And it's honestly, it was very healing. And it's really the greatest gift that you can give yourself, to ditch the persona that you built, as a coping mechanism to protect yourself from whatever you went through, mostly as a child, but also as a teenager or as a young adult, because, trauma can happen anytime in your life. And just have this mindfulness of choosing happiness. Because choosing happiness is not an easy task. Like, don't believe that because you're doing the work or because you choose happiness that your life is going to be freaking perfect and it's going to be, rainbows and butterflies. No, because at some point, someone is going to die. You're going to have to process your grief, whether it's your loved one or your family member or a pet. I don't know. Things happen. You may lose your job. And I mean, life in itself is challenging. So it's really about, okay, what do I want to create? Knowing that some things are out of our controls, but we can set an intentions and take actions towards this goal, and just be grateful for the things that we have, because especially in our society where we want to have and we want to buy and we need to do this and we need to do that, like we need to have like the ski holiday, and then, like the summer holidays by the oceans. And we need to have this like a beach house, and we need to have this, I don't know, whatever it is, like Bentley or whatever, or this big house. Just sometimes just enjoy the things that you have. And I don't know if it's because I went through so much or because it's just who I am, but like in 2022, I started my life from scratch. I built my business. It was a very challenging year, But at the same time, I'm able to, like in the evening, when everything is calm and quiet, I'm able to be grateful to have the roof that I have over my head, to be able to put food on the table, to be able to pay for gas and electricity, especially here in Europe right now with the energy crisis. That my puppies, like I have 3 dogs, they're healthy and happy, and yes, just feeling grateful for like the most simple, basic things. And of course, we want to experience more, and that's fine. But let's just enjoy the simple things. We don't need to go for higher. We don't need to go for bigger or better or whatever, standard society wants to sell to us, I guess. Especially, me, like I'm on Instagram because, I work online. So I see all these coaches always, like always reaching for the next goal, the next thing. They kind of just, sit down, look around, and enjoy what we have. We don't always need to have a goal. Obviously, if you're struggling, if you're unhappy, if you're dissatisfied with your life, of course, do the work on yourself, find out what it is, what is going on, and reach out for help. But if you're feeling good in your life, like, don't try to look for something that is wrong. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Thank you.
So Monica, that's amazing, because that's quite the journey that you have. And that progress is what many people would need to continue to have, because it just makes more sense to be successful in your way, but not necessarily in comparison to other people.
Yeah, just have the life that you want for yourself. Don't compare yourself to other people. And if there's one thing that I know, you don't have a clue about what's going on in people's lives. You don't know all the things that people share on the internet. They're not sharing the darkest or most intimate parts of their lives. They're showing to you what they want to show you. And so don't compare yourself to other people. Do not envy what they have, because you don't really know what they have. You only know what they're showing you.